So tonight, the return of Keto, as she's now known. Are you okay with that nickname, by the way? I sort of just called it because there's too many Daves in the world.
It's better than some of my other nicknames. So yeah, I'll take Keto.
And you can explain what you're going to do, so I'll turn you over to Dave.
Thank you very much.
Got the lights off.
Yes, please.
Okay.
So, trying to think how long ago. A while ago, I was watching a YouTube video of a professional photographer. I can't remember who. I have a feeling it was Thomas Heaton. And he said something along the lines of, he doesn't do any planning when he goes out to take a photo. He just likes to turn up on spec and find a photo. And I thought I was exactly the same until I started to think about it. And as this tonight's guide will evidence, the only thing I don't plan is where I'm going to stand specifically for the foreground. Everything else is planned to the nth degree, and it's something I hadn't realised. But it's the main reason why when I go out to take a photo, I usually come back with a photo that I'm really happy with, and I get quite a few portfolio-worthy shots, in my opinion. So I thought I'd share that with you tonight, and yeah, just show what goes into in my no planning.
If you plan that much, how could you not know that you plan?
Second nature.
Because when I turn up, it's usually in quite a wide open space, and I turn up and I just walk around for a couple of hours and just see what I like. So I don't go in knowing what photo I'm going to take, and to me that meant no planning. I just dismissed all the other planning which I do, which is a lot.
We'll find out now.
As you're about to find out, yeah. So my photography journey started 3 years ago, give or take a month or so, when Dan Gibbs, who's come tonight, he got me into photography to help me with my recovery from chronic fatigue syndrome. And if people don't know what that is, it's another name for ME, and it basically means that my body was in limp home mode. So I had virtually no energy, and when I tried to do anything, that energy rapidly disappeared. It put me off work, threw me into quite a bit of deep depression when I realised just how long it was going to take to recover. And photography became my reason to go out and exercise and to start to rebuild my energy. So I had loads of time on my hands, very little energy, and if I went out to go and take photos, if I did too much, which could be as little as an hour worth of activity, it'd write my energy off for a good 3 days. So I had to be very, very sure that if I was going out, it was going to be worth it. When I first started going out, I'd have maybe 15, 30 minutes. So my first photos were taken in the fields around the house. Then it was going out a bit further into the countryside, and very soon my energy was building up, and the local landscapes just weren't enough. So I was like, right, okay, well I need to find out where I can go. And the other issue I had is that I decided, okay, my energy's good today, I can go out. Where am I going to go? So then I'd start trying to work out where I could go, and I could burn a couple of hours of time just trying to make that decision. Regularly run out of energy because I've been thinking too much, and I'd also lose all my motivation. So I decided that I did need to do some planning if it was just a case of having an idea where to go. So the first place that I went to was, so I found this site. So James Pedlin, his 100 best places to photograph in the Peak District National Park. And for the longest time, this was my one-stop shop on where to go. So for anyone who wants to photograph in the Peak District, this site is gold. There is, as the title suggests, 101 locations you can go to, all in the visual map. Each site, pick one of them, you get the photo which James has taken, which in most cases are fantastic photos. In the other cases are absolutely stunning. You get a difficulty rating in terms of getting to them. You get a good description of what to look for, and a full breakdown of each location. You can filter by the ease of the locations to go to. So just one 5-star rating. Yeah, so that's because this is a 3-hour hike, which I think we'll all agree is quite a stretch. You got the county, if that's of interest. It shows just how many counties the Peak District reaches into. And then you've got the time of day. Now for me, when I started, middle of the day was really when I had the most energy. So I ignored this, and I really wish I hadn't, because as we'll see later, that does have quite a bearing. But this site, for anyone who wants to shoot in the Peak District, it's still on my favourites list 3 years later, because it's still a great place to go to. So because not all of these were suitable for me, so I was just on the edge of Stoke, these were kind of the main ones I could get to. So to help me to refine that list, I wanted to start making my own list, and using this as the guide and having the visual map, I went to Google Maps and I actually started to use the want to go to list, which is their default, and just started dropping pins in. So for the Peak District, I think I've got 60 different locations saved, and I'm regularly adding to this as I find you new pins. It's not quite as good as James's site, so they might show you a photograph, but that's about it. So the ratings I just had to learn as I went along, or just use James's site as reference. And Google Maps is great because you can create the list and it's there for you. So if you find a new place you want to go to, let's pick anywhere, you drop a pin, you bring up the details, and then you can save it to the list. It's a great way, for me at least, to have a very visual view of the different locations which I can go to. So as I started to get out and get into the Peak District, I quickly found that the waterfalls I was really enjoying taking photos of. It was one of the first YouTube videos I watched around photography techniques was around waterfalls. So for me, that was, I think it was great results early on, and then it also meant that it, kind of kept a soft spots for them. So here's just a few of the shots I've taken. So you might recognise Knipersley Pool. So this is possibly one of the local waterfalls I've been to the most. Every season it's different. Whether the water flow, whether we've had good rain or it's starting to dry, makes a big difference in terms of how the waterfall and the streams look. For this waterfall, I found that you kind of approach it on this left-hand side. The right-hand side has the better angles, but there's no easy way to cross the water. It is very shallow along the front lip, but it's also very slippery. So I did find out one time as I was coming across just how slippery it was, and luckily I went that way and not this way. But I did spend the rest of that day with a soaking wet foot.
I always come back from there with wet feet.
Yeah. So this waterfall's in Wales. It is the Nant Mill waterfall. It's got this fantastic pool, which is really deep. The rocks which are around it, on this side, they're all, I don't know which way around. These are all very smooth, and you get these definite steps in the rocks. I don't know how deep the water is, but people are definitely swimming in there. This side of the rocks are very pitted. Oh, Daniel. And it's also got these fascinating circles where I can only assume a small stone has got into a hole, and then the currents have just spun it around. So you get these very circular, almost a perfect circle carvings in the rocks. This is one of the early waterfalls I went to. I think it's known as Ingersley Vale, and there's another name which eludes me. It's a really impressive waterfall, which you only really see right as you get to it, and it has this 2-metre man-made weir, and then I'm not even sure how steep that actually is. It's probably 2 to 3 metres, but it's a very natural set of cascades. This water then disappears underneath a bridge, but that bridge has got cottages on it, so you don't see the back because you can't get around the back of the houses. So this waterfall almost appears to disappear into nothing. This is Monsell Head Weir. I'll come on to the weather in a moment, but one of the great things about waterfalls is that you can shoot it on a grey day. So if the conditions aren't looking great, waterfalls are a great thing to get. You're going to need a longer shutter speed to capture them. And if you've got a grey day and you've got reduced light, you can regularly do that without even needing an ND filter. And there's waterfalls all over the place. So this is one down near Birmingham, and there's a small creek, but very similar to the one beside Biddulph Grange. There was nobody there, and there's just a set of these pools, and then this fantastic chute of waterfall. And in autumn, this one was fantastic. And then Dan Gibbs might also recognise this one. So this is not far from where I live. It's grey water, so it drops into this concrete basin, and in this V, the water comes out almost like jelly. And the way the sun was dropping down on this one, I did bump up the saturation a bit, but those colours were in there. The only problem is that it absolutely stank. So I've not been back, but it is It is one of my favourite shots.
Yeah, oddly, mine didn't come anywhere out near as good as that.
And this is one I found, I think, top side of Manchester or northwest. I think this is Ashworth Mill waterfall. So again, this is a man-made weir.
Did you place that leaf on the foreground, or did that just happen to be there?
I placed this one. It was, I don't think it was far away. I certainly didn't take it with me. But yeah, I did place that one. I usually don't, but yeah, felt quite compelled. That's that same waterfall in the background, and then there's another set of weirs a bit further down. If it's in woodland, you can kind of go any weather condition, as long as you've got a good canopy overhead, even in the bright sunlight. It's still going to be quite dark underneath that tree cover. I think I did use a tripod for this one though. And again, this is just a bit further down. And yeah, Monsell Head, low clouds, lots of rain, fantastic for shooting the waterfalls. Not the best for staying dry. And this is the Lamberries waterfalls. These are a fantastic set. Loads of energy, loads of noise, fantastic moss throughout. And then this is Pistol Raider. There is actually a 70-metre waterfall up above, but I wanted to focus on this.
Where's that?
Pistol Raider. So just into Wales, a little past. I think it's north of Oswestry. And then left a bit.
And right.
And right. Yeah, left and right.
Ah, I see, yeah.
It's quite an easy drive until you get to the last 3 miles, and then it's a single track lane through the trees.
As you go through the village, isn't it? Because there's a little sign on the side of a house that points you to get to it.
Yeah.
If you miss it, you've had it. You can't
There's
find
a cafe
it.
around as well, so if you do get there and you're hungry, you can eat it.
There is, as long as it's open.
Yeah.
And again, this was a rainy day. It is usually packed with people, but I think I went midweek. I went while it was raining, and there was only one small family who you can't really see. But yeah, usually it is quite packed. And then this is Aberfalls. I had actually gone with the mind of going on a sunny day, waiting for the sun to hit this wall. It didn't happen. It stayed overcast, but it's still great for another waterfall. That's back to the start. So with the inclusion of waterfalls, my want to go to list was starting to get a bit bloated. So I ended up producing additional lists. And I now have, I think, around 20. Nathan, on the back of your talk, I have an Iceland list. So thank you for that one. And I've even got as far away as Patagonia. It is a bit, yeah, it's a bit far.
Does it go south, turn right?
I think, yeah, I think you go left and left again. Yeah.
Where's the club trip? Can we nip over to the Falkland Islands while we're down there?
Nicky arranges the trips now, so we're there at the break.
So yeah, I now have quite a few locations across the UK to pick from. The green flags, which was against Bob again, originally my want to go list, is actually my places that I've been to list.
Right, because you went there.
Yeah, so I think it was twofold. It was one to remind me of the places which I had been to, and was also a nice way to tick off the locations. And I've been to at least 96 places so far.
When did you start doing this?
3 years ago.
3 years.
So I had enough energy to get out every other week. At least, well, every other week was kind of the target. I'd occasionally get out once a week. But yeah, it was a case of go out, spend the next 3 days wrecked. So you might notice from the placement of the green pins that Snowdonia and Anglesey, the Peak District and the Lake District are my go-tos. So just because of the road system, I can get to North Wales and Snowdonia in a similar time as it can take me to reach the top side of the Peak District. And while we've got great hills in the Peak District, we've got stunning mountains and seascapes over in North Wales. So more recently, you'd be more likely to find me in Wales than the Peak District. The Lake District is, what, 3.5 hours to get there. So for me, with my energy over the last couple of years, that would mean multiple stops on the way up. It'd definitely need to stay overnight. So I've been to less places in the Lake District just because that one needs more extra time and extra planning, which I don't do.
Sounds like you need a chauffeur.
Well,
And a companion.
yeah. My energy has been getting steadily better to the point where I'm almost at the point of saying that I've recovered from the chronic fatigue syndrome, which has coincided nicely with being made redundant from work, which is why I now want to try and do photography full time. At the minute, I'm just looking for a micro campus so I can not have to worry too much about finding campsites to stop over. In terms of finding all of these locations, most of them came from YouTube. So during my recovery and my days where I had no energy, sitting in front of the telly and watching hours of landscape photography videos on YouTube was brilliant. Kept me very entertained and really helped me to be inspired to go out with a camera. So I would look for Peak District photographers, and that's where a lot of these pins came from, as well as James Pedlin's site. Snowdon as well. I started, in fact, which way around to do it? I think I did the Lake District first. So, yeah, I went Peak District, then Waterfalls, and then the Lake District. So, just seeing these photographers, it was in these stunning mountain settings. I then went up with Chadders and Andy Pickford, and we went and sat up a mountain for a day trying to photograph jets. We got one.
And it was very dark as well.
Yeah, it really started.
You got one.
Yeah, I think Chadders, haven't you had a bit of a dry spell leading up to that?
Yeah, I had another one yesterday. Yeah. No, we
5 yesterday, was it? And then
How many
Yeah.
pictures did you actually take of them?
5, 5, 6 and one on.
Blurred ones.
And we, after that day, we'd actually decided we weren't quite done. The clouds were coming in, it was a bit dark, the no-show on the plains. So we figured we'd head up to Keswick and Derwent Water. So, amazing reservoir. Do you want to get that up here in the north? You may recognise it from Helen's Blip photos. So there was a couple of your photos were from Derwent Water, looking down at the jaws of Borrowdale at this end.
I've just seen surprise view. Is it full of people going, woo?
Yeah, it's a lot of people going, oh. You drive up a single track road for miles, takes a good 15 minutes plus. You're you're surrounded by trees. You get to the Surprise View car park, which isn't that surprising.
No.
But then when you step out and you walk to the edge, you get this it's a high view all the way across Derwent Water. So you look out to the Cat Bells Mountains on this side, you look out to Skiddaw, which is just north. And it is honestly a surprise when you walk to the edge in these trees and you go, oh, that's there. So yeah, not too many people jumping out, but a lot of people jumping back.
Not till Claire gets there.
Yeah.
And it's even as good when you get to the bottom of that single track road if you've got the nerve to follow it all the way up.
To get to what end, Lath?
Oh, I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, where the little tarn is right at the top.
Yeah. So you can see there's a green flag. I have been there. That takes another 15 minutes to get to.
Yeah, and if something comes other way, God help you.
Yeah. There's a car park here which has no signal, so if you haven't got any change, you've just wasted a good half an hour. But the view, or the hills around this, is really nice. And they've got a couple of rowing boats on there as well. I've got one shot from there. It was a really grey day, so I spent half an hour to get there for. It's a nice black and white photo, but it was quite lackluster. So we got to Keswick, and I'd recently watched a video from Chris Sale, who's a YouTube photographer based in the Lake District, and he'd taken photos of the Millennium Stone. So this was a National Trust, don't know what the word is. It's a big rock which they've cut in half. They've carved into the face with this like a maze pattern, and then they've set it in the water just by the shore. So it's a great subject, and again you look across the water towards the jaws of Borrowdale. I mustn't have paid enough attention to the video because it was described as being just around the corner.
Yeah.
I remember that walk.
Yeah. Which corner was it, David?
Well, is it this one? Was it that one?
Or was it that one, or was it that one? Yeah.
Yeah. We started. Where's the car park? Yeah, I think we started in the car park around here. Trying to find which one it is. That's Fry's Crag. No, it's one of these. I think it took us 40 minutes to find, and it started to rain while we were there.
Yeah.
And it was quite a persistent drizzle. So we spent 40 minutes to find this rock. The weather had closed in, so the views weren't that great. And that's when I learned 2 lessons. And I'm going somewhere, work out exactly where it is. Don't just think it's around the corner. And start looking at the weather.
You ever did that?
No.
be honest, the Millennium Stone isn't that impressive when you see it either, is it?
No, the photos of it made it look like it was really big. But I don't think I've actually seen a photo where it's to scale, because it's maybe the size of that table. And that's with the two split and separated out. It's
So totally worth it then.
wasn't worth the 40 minutes in the rain.
It was a good day, but
Yeah, it was worth the airing.
yeah.
But no, I've not been back.
So we got a picture of it.
Google will. Don't let me down.
It's got some photos, but they're not exactly worth showing anybody.
So this is it. Just see if we can find a shot.
I wanted to
Is
see
it the
your
one there,
photo of it,
second
Dave.
row from the bottom,
My photo.
on the
But
yeah.
one you took, yeah.
Well, I think you prefer to see one of
It's
these.
better when you've got reflections, doesn't it? Because it's not the time of year to go now and there's no water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so you get the views of the mountains when they're visible.
But that one does look about 4 times the size it actually is.
Yeah, it is pretty lackluster. I will have a shot somewhere. I might be able to find it. No, there must be an.
Did you go on a boat?
Yeah, why is there a picture in the middle of the lake?
Off the field.
Hang on.
He's
Um,
projecting the drought.
Yeah, it was very
What it
dry
looked like.
that day. Yeah. In fact, I'll have it in Lightroom. If I can find Lightroom now. Peak District, Lake District. So, that's a. Well, there you go.
Oh, still a good photo.
I think I've cheated with that one. I think I've been doing a bit of editing with it, because it was more like that, just quite grey and quite drab.
They got rid of the bird book.
I did ask Dave, but he said no. In fact, that means I'll also have a surprise view.
Just a picture of you going.
This is what end left. So there'll be a black and white of that somewhere. Which one? Yeah. So that's surprise view. So this is Skiddaw, which is only 40 metres short of Scarfell Park in terms of height, so it's one of the highest mountains in England. You've got Crummock Water out towards a sunset, which, yeah, this is just a smart preview. There was a great view in that sunset, as you can see from this great photo. But yeah, it is surprising. Yeah. So the three main places where I find new locations to add to the list. We have we have YouTube, so the landscape photographers, especially the British ones, all seem to aim for similar locations, which I do. They do go further afield, which is why on my maps list you'll also see the Isle of Skye. If I can find it. So this is my autumn road trip, which I'll be going on. So I figured I'd get a few places, and then depending on the weather, I can work out where best to go. But it's going to take, I think it's a 9-hour drive to get up to the Quirang. That's how you pronounce it. I'm good for probably 3 hours driving with a break in between. So that road trip, trying to get this round, will actually be come up to the Lake District on the first day, take some photos there. The second day I'll probably drive up to Glencoe, and then on the third day I'll actually make it up to the Isle of Skye, and then I'll probably do the reverse on the way home. So I even plan that far, given that I don't plan. But yeah, I watch the YouTube videos, and whenever they mention a new area which looks really great, another pin gets added in. I've ended up with, I think I've got a Yorkshire Dales waterfall set. I've got the Welsh lighthouses. So I think I've pretty much got all of the ones apart from one more on Anglesey to get, which gets me to there. After that, yeah, that's it. I've got to come all the way down towards wherever that is. But at that point, that's going to need that's going to want a micro camper job. Because I'm too cheap to stop in hotels. The other two locations where I get photos is Instagram. So I've got collections including the Peak District.
I do that too. I've got on Instagram a bucket list collection, and then I've got an inspiration thing. So if I see something that I think's a good way of doing it, I do save it.
Yeah.
Give me ideas.
Yeah, I do the same.
And I've got a cats folder as well.
You do surprise me.
Is that the biggest one?
Yeah. The inspiration's pretty good because it's not just photography, it's video and everything, but it is really good because how often of time that you're there just scrolling through Instagram, you think, oh, that's a great idea, and then next time you're out, you can't remember what it was you thought. So actually having it all saved there is a really good idea.
How do you do that?
How?
Yeah.
I'll show you a break if you like.
That's the right answer.
I can show you quickly.
Oh yeah, you can show it on the screen, yeah.
So you find a post you like, and
Anybody's photo.
anybody's, as long as they're mine. And
I'll read and pillage your collection later.
I think you can only look at their galleries, their actual profiles.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you can share or see what other people have pinned.
No.
But within your like, comment and share, you've also got bookmark. And when you bookmark it, you can save it to collections, and you can create a new collection if you want to start grouping them.
Can they see if you save their photo?
Yeah, so
Come up on their...
it doesn't say who saved it.
Right.
But if I take one of my posts, quick plug. Then if I look at the insights, which I can't do on here, Yeah, so if you've got it set up as, I think it's a business account or a creator account, you can actually see how many people have liked it, how many people have commented, and how many people have saved it as well.
Right.
I think you can if you like click on the photo
You can on the app.
and on the app, you see it says View Insights underneath the photo.
Yeah.
If you click on View Insights, yes, and you do it on the app, it just tells you how many accounts it reached, engaged, how many came to you from hashtags from home, and it tells you how many liked, commented, saved, and shared. Tells you all that kind of stuff.
Is that if it's set up as a business account or
That's my cat's account, so.
that's your cat's account? So that's not a
And
business
that's not a
account.
business, no.
No.
Right, I've never gone into it. Why?
No, it's quite interesting when you can see what
All
people have been
that.
looking at and liking, and
Yeah, so on the phone, when you look at it, there's just underneath your likes, you've got View Insights.
Yeah, I have seen that. I've just taken sod all notice of it.
So yeah, I have quite a few collections. This photo is one which I really want to get. And I've been scouring Google Maps to try and work out where this wall is. And so far, I've not been able to find it. I even went there the other day, and I think I was too far over this
have
way.
you not just asked him in the comments?
Where's this photo?
No.
Just a thought, yeah.
It's taking him about, can you give us the 2 kids quarters?
Yeah, I'll DM him later. Don't think slide into his DMs is what I'm after. But yeah, any Peak District photo that I see that I like, I'll save these. I'll find out where they are. I mean, I know where this is, and then I'll add a pin in. So this is Crome Hill and Parkhouse Hill. It's great for morning shots for sunrise because the light fills up this valley. You've just got to get up ridiculously early, and I don't. I've done a couple of sunrise shots, but
If you go in winter, you don't have to get up as early, do you?
that is true. I might start to do it more now, he says. The other place which I go to now, and more so now, is Vero. So a lot of people are decamping from Instagram to Vero. It's basically the same, but there's less influencers on here sharing TikToks. The number of the photos is reduced, but the quality is definitely up there. So if we look at, it's a really good one. Oh, this guy. So you've got a desktop app rather than just running it in a browser. You've still got the mobile apps. You can, unlike Instagram, which shrinks the images down and restricts the amount of the resolution you can have. Well, just let me course on the desktop app. You get a much higher resolution. So it's easier when I've found a location to find good shots which are inspirational.
Can you just click on one and just see where it looks like down one, across one? That. Just. What's happened there? That looks amazing.
It's a panoramic astro shot.
It's alright, isn't it?
It was amazing a second.
On YouTube, Photo Pills have got I've got a video on how to do this,
Okay.
which I keep meaning to watch and haven't yet. But yeah, social media is great for finding locations. If you're using, I guess Flickr as well is going to be a good one. As long as the apps are photo-centric and as long as they include where the photos are taken, this, yeah, I use this to create a lot of pins.
You can notice which time through.
Yeah, actually that's a pretty good one, yeah.
Yeah, okay now? Yeah?
Yep.
Right, have a break then.
In fact, I say that, if I do one more slide, because it's still on locations, and then we can move into some of the other elements. Remember where I was? Yeah, so once I've worked out, kind of got an idea of the locations, one of the things I look for is the background for the images. So I wouldn't just go and try and find this and take that one shot. But the fact that we've got Crome Hill and Parkhouse Hill, that's where we'll go to go and find the shots. I regularly use Google Maps, Google Earth, and an app called the Photographer's Ephemeris, which I'll cover more in a bit. And Street View within Google to find where we've got big items in the background, so that can be hills, mountains, mountains over the sea. So I like to find areas which have got really interesting backgrounds, and then I will go there to go and find good midgrounds and foregrounds. As well as finding the place, I'll work out how long it's going to take me to get there. So if we use Penny Rolwen in the Ogwen Valley. So the Ogwen Valley in Snowdonia, I don't know, I'm not on the road, has got this fantastic, let me come on to this view. Let's get on the road. There we go. So you've got amazing mountains around this reservoir and rainbows.
That rainbow there all the time.
Only when I've turned up.
It's fine somewhere parked, eh?
There's I think they've improved it a lot more. There's a number of car parks which are alongside the reservoir itself, but just at this end, in fact, let's come back out to this view.
Because I mean, at the other end, you've only got that little cafe, haven't you? Like car parking for about, what, 40 cars, 50 cars at max?
Yeah.
And now it's all yellow lines and they tow you away.
But this run here, at the other end of the water, has got huge space on the sides for parking.
Yeah.
And every time I've been, I've usually ended up parking right at this end. For the main reason that I usually aim for the Afon Lure, which is this set of cascades which come down off the mountains, and you get Travan in the background. My mate. So yeah, there's the cascades come down, depending on how much water you get. Depends on whether these are interesting, a little bit dry, or a raging torrent where you're probably risking your life to go near. But no, but one of my photographer mates does. He went there and it was an absolute torrent, and it was I wouldn't want to, because I regularly hop back and forth across the water. This little sheep had lost
Thought
its
it was a
mum.
cat.
They'd lost its mum, so it came across to the other side of these falls from me and was bleating at me. And then looked as if it was trying to get across. So I was having to, well, I was urging this sheep to go back the other way, not try and come over. And then its mum turned up and it went off with her. But yeah, I didn't want to see a sheep head down these. But yeah, this location, I'd seen that there were the mountains, and that was as much as the planning in terms of where I was going to get photos had gotten. So I've been at this end towards Lynn Idwell. I haven't been up to the Devil's Kitchen yet, which is another lake. You've got Trevan, you've got Egarn. These are the Glidders. So there's fantastic rock formations up on top. And then there's a mountain here, Penny Olwen. So once I found a location like this, the first thing I'm going to do is see how long it's going to take me to get there. And look for parking. So usually this shows that there's parking all along here. So yeah, I know this is going to be a good 2-hour drive. In fact, that's not where I was going. I've got there. That's better. Yeah, but it's going to be a 2-hour drive. If it's a place which I've been to before and I know roughly where I'm going to be, I might give myself an hour in terms of finding compositions. If it's somewhere brand new, I'll probably look to get there a couple of hours early just to make sure that I've got plenty of time. I'll also then go to Outdoor Active. So Outdoor Active will help you to work out how long it's going to take you to walk up to the points you want. So let's start one here. So this is the last big trip I tried to do. So I wanted to get up to the top of here because you're going to get views over the mountain ranges and over to Snowdon. So it's don't know why this isn't moving up. Oh, that's it. This will tell you what the ascent's going to be like. So this one looked fairly easy for most of the way. This is actually really steep. And when I got to 700 metres, I found that actually there's almost a vertical pitch which you've got to scramble up. And with a stone worth of camera gear on my back, I realised after a couple of reaches that it was not something I could do. As I got so close, it's still one I want to go and get back up to the top of, especially given the views, which I've seen photos of. I just need to find an easier route up, but I'm not sure there is one. That's going to be a lot steeper, and I know that's a lot of scrambling. And these other routes just look as if they'll take me a couple of days. But yeah, this is a great one for working out just the best route up and how realistic it is. Although it let me down. So those are all the elements which I use for finding locations and working out where I'm going. So instead of waking up in the morning and going, right, I've got a free day, where am I going to go? I can now go, right, let's refine it, let's see where's realistic. let's see what's doable. So after my 40-minute walk with Chadders and Andy in the rain when we went up to Keswick, I knew that I needed to start paying a bit more attention to the weather. And I still didn't learn my lesson, because not long after I went up to Snowdon's to photograph the horseshoe, and sat on top of a hill for a few hours, and it was bucketing down throughout. And I think it was a combination of those two which finally convinced me to start paying attention to the weather. And listening to a number of the landscape photographers on YouTube, a lot of them were talking about clear outside. So this app, as well as being the most accurate for weather, and it still is, I can look 3 or 4 days in advance on this app and other apps, and they usually contradict. But as we get to the days before, this one has remained the same and is still quite accurate, and the others are a bit closer to its predictions. It's also very accurate on the day, so it's definitely my go-to app. The other benefit is the extra details which it gives. Yeah, it tells you whether you're going to be wet or dry, but it does give you so much more. For a start, you get the details of when the sun and the moon are going to rise and set. It's also going to give you an idea overnight of when it's actually going to get dark. So together you can use those for then astrophotography, and to know whether you've got a full moon, a crescent moon, or whether you won't have any because it's set. It also gives you the details of the golden hour, the blue hour, and twilight. So those are quite important in terms of taking photos, because those are your best light areas, and I'll come back to that later on in the talk. The other benefit which this goes over most, try again. The other benefit which this app gives over most other weather apps is that it gives you a breakdown of the cloud. So 100% total cloud cover may be all at one level, but if it's across the low, the medium, and the high, you can actually have plenty of breaks in there, even with 100% cover. And breaks in the cloud means that you're going to get sunlight coming through. Honestly, breaks are one of the factors I look for, because it will give you these spotlights of colour and contrast of light within the scene. So when you time it right, if you've got specific elements in the landscape that you want to pick out, so farm buildings, hillsides, trees, you can use that broken light to bring these almost spotlights through the scene, and light just the element you want, while keeping the rest of the scene in dark light. Just helps your subject to stand out. You also get details of when the International Space Station is going to be visible over the horizon. So if you're looking to track that. The visibility is going to tell you how much haze you've got. If you're photographing a scene with the mountains in the background, but you've got a really hazy day, you're going to lose those mountains. Fog, great if you're doing early morning scenes. We've got the Hope Valley in the Peak District not far from us. That is great for when you've got fog which is settled in. Gives you the probability of rain, also the amount which is going to get dropped. That'll also change that symbol if it's a likelihood of snow. Wind, always important in terms of when you're taking a shot and you're going to have long exposures in your tripod, those winds are getting too high, it may be enough to either tell you be careful in terms of getting a vantage point not too exposed, or not to bother at all. It gives you a frost warning. Doesn't usually pop up in summer, but you never know. And alongside your temperature, you've also got the feels like, so that's factoring in your wind chill factor. So your other weather apps may tell you that yes, it's going to be 6 or 7 degrees on this lovely winter's day, but this will tell you that, but taking into account the wind chill factor, you could be closer to 0, so no to wrap up that much warmer. This also includes the dew point and the humidity, which I'm led to believe can be used to predict cloud inversions. So again, the Hope Valley, when you get cloud inversions in there, your view from Mantor, looking over those and the Great Ridge, the views from Winnett's Pass are fantastic when you've got the cloud inversion and you've got those down below you with the peaks up above. So that is something which I want to learn, especially as now getting towards autumn, where the probability of those increases, or at least the frequency of them. As in most apps, you've got the home location, your current location. Great if you're out and about and you just want to work out whether these dark clouds you're seeing have actually shifted and there's a chance of rain. And then you've got the locations. So you can save these based on the name of the place, if it's a fairly noticeable place like Keswick or Manchester. You can also put in the specific coordinates. So if you're looking at something which is deep in the Lake District, well away from any major kind of town or city, you can get a very accurate view of where you're going to be. Early on in my planning stages, we're looking at the weather, I would have locations which were in the Peak District and each of the corners I would go to. So one at Dovedale, one at Buxton, one out towards Mantor. I'd have one Snowdon, another one in Anglesey, and a couple dotted around in Lake Districts such as Keswick. But this meant that when I was looking at the different locations, I'd have to go into all of these different areas to see where was good. And then, again, another, I think it was an Instagram-based landscape photographer, they started talking about another app called Windy. So the Windy app is great in that it gives you an overview of the country. So we can zoom in, we can focus on the 3 areas I like to go to, so Snowdon, North Wales area, the Peak District, and the Lake District. This then includes layers, so you can see how the conditions are going to be. So rain, always a great one to go and see on the forecast. Am I going to stay dry? Am I going to get soaked? And with this, so I can look at this map and immediately write off the Lake District. I don't want to get soaked. Peak District is looking a bit wetter than Snowdonia. I can also look at the cloud levels. And again, this is that high level view. So I can see actually that right now it's a write-off. I'm not going to go out in these conditions. So golden hour, actually the golden hour is looking quite good for this bottom corner of the Peak District. So with this app, I can actually quickly discount areas and start looking at a smaller list of locations on the weather and on those pins when determining where to go. I can also use this to give me a judge of where the clouds are going to be on that day. So, for example, if I'm looking at Anglesey, when the sun is setting out to the west, I don't want clouds to be on the horizon because the sun's going to set behind those. I won't get any of the dramatic skies. But equally, if I've got clouds which are to the south of me over Snowdon, I know that when I get photos looking out in that direction during sunset, they're going to be catching the colour. And again, I can use that to find a more dramatic sky. I think there was, and I don't know who, again, another photographer, who said that as landscape photographers, we photograph the weather in those locations. And I get that 100%. If we have flat and grey, overcast day in a location, we're going to get flat and grey photos. If we're getting dramatic weather and dramatic light, we're going to get dramatic photos. So understanding the weather and the weather around me is definitely important with those photos. So a couple of the other apps which I use, tides. So understanding whether the sea is going to be in or out, on its way in, on its way out, especially around sunset, is going to give me a really good idea when I'm at the coastal locations, just how that's all going to piece together. If I'm going to land on an island, as a prime example, I know not to go when there's a high tide, which will cut me off from either getting to or back from the island. So tides, yeah, definitely one if I'm heading to the seaside locations. So I like going out for sunsets, and one of the things I learned to look for within those weather apps, and especially Clear Outside gives it brilliantly. If you've got a good amount of high level cloud, and then you've got broken low level cloud above, and then using the Windy app, I can see that we've got clear skies in the sunset direction. Then I know that the sun's going to be able to get low, which means that as we get into the golden hour, we're going to get the warmer tones. I know that the high level clouds are then going to be able to capture that colour, and the low level clouds and the medium clouds are just going to give some extra interest into the sky. So in each of these shots, those are the conditions we've got. So we get the sun getting almost down to the horizon and still reaching the underneath of the clouds where we are. And then the higher the clouds, the more colour we're going to get. So the higher clouds are getting that pink, and the lower clouds, the sun's above, so we're going to get more of that blue. And most of these shots are just out of the window at home. And other than just a bit of dehaze and increasing the saturation, most of these are fairly unedited. This isn't the view from the house, yeah. This is at the far end of the Llyn Peninsula. I'd gone there to take photos of the lighthouse, and I wanted it at sunrise and sunset. And I think I spent more time on the sunrise pointing in the opposite direction and not getting really any shots of the lighthouse. I think I got a couple. But these high level clouds were just catching nothing but colour. And I don't think there's any yeah, I think those wisps may have been at a lower level. So it was just all colour. I think these were, I don't know if these were medium or high, but yeah, we got that definite ripple in the clouds, and they just, the peaks of them caught that light.
Looks like knuckles of a big god coming to focus. But and there's the thumb. Not seen that before. Can anyone else see that? It's not just
Yeah.
me, is it?
Can't
No,
now.
I can see it.
Now I can't unsee it. I think this is the same night, so this is just looking in the direction of the sun instead of looking back. And yeah, the shape of those clouds then has a big impact of how they catch that colour. I think it's this next one. I think that's one of the best skies I've ever seen. And this is me hanging out the bedroom window.
Is that your TV area?
No, that must be that's a couple of doors down. Ours is on the chimney. Yeah. So yeah, when I look at clear outside and windy, one of the few things I look for is that combination of high cloud overhead, clear skies in the direction of the sun, and you're looking a good 50 to 80 miles away for where the sun's actually going to be pushing through. But I think in this shot, they're probably only about 30 miles away, just based on the fact that I can't see the hills of Beeston Castle and Peckforton Castle, which are there. But there's still that gap to the horizon behind it. The other weather conditions which I look for are rainbow conditions. And I'm not saying that you're guaranteed a rainbow when you come out with me. But I am saying that I've caught quite a few, especially when I've gone out with Chadders and Dave and Andy. So there's Chadders, there's Andy P. Oh, and Andy Nicholson's behind me.
It's not falling.
So we were shooting a lighthouse at sunset, and as I look back towards the guys up the way, the sun was getting lower, so we were getting these warm colours coming through, but I could see that this was a rainstorm coming past, which meant that I then kept on checking, because these are prime rainbow conditions. If you've got the sun directly behind you, and then you've got a rain shower in front, that's where you're going to get the sun hitting all that moisture as the rain comes down, and that's where you're highly likely to get rainbows. And it happened. In fact, I was calling Andy to make sure that he was looking that way as well, because I could see it starting to form.
So can you predict double rainbows?
All rainbows are double rainbows.
Are they?
Usually that second one's much fainter. To be honest, there's usually a third as well, but that's usually so faint you're going to struggle to see it. I think the main reason why these conditions are great for the rainbows, as well as being able to see them, is the dark sky, or the darker the sky behind them, the more they're going to stand out. And if you're taking photos of them, if you've got a circular polarizing filter, get that on the camera, because as it cuts through the haze, it cuts through some of the water, and then you get the colours come through much clearer. So I've caught a few. And if you've got the rain shower running perpendicular to you, that's great, because you're not going to get wet. Whereas if it's coming towards you, you then you're running the gauntlet. Especially if your camera isn't weather sealed.
Have you purposely lined up the bottom of the rainbow with that pointy thing?
I did, yeah. This is Saint Dwinen's Church on Landwin Island, and she's the Welsh patron saint of love. Well, it wasn't Saint Dwinen's Day. This was Valentine's Day. So yeah, when I saw the rainbow when I was here, realising that this rain's all moving across, I then legged it to the church, and luckily got it all lined up. And again, just working with that timing to capture it through the window. So quite a pinky rainbow. I always thought they were just the full colours, but apparently in that red light, yeah, they were more red. I'm showing you the back of the camera for this one because I'm gutted. I've lost the original photos from the day. I don't know how I've done it because I'm usually really good at getting them backed up. Trying to think what time of the day this is. This must be 10 or 11 o'clock at night. The sun's long set, and this rainbow, as you can see from the stars, is at night. This is a moon rainbow, which this is probably a good 30-second exposure, if not longer. I could just see this faint line of light in the sky, and I'm like, it looks like it's a rainbow, but you can't get rainbows at night. But apparently you can get moon rainbows as well.
I haven't heard of them. Has anybody else heard of moon rainbows before?
I had to Google it to make sure that I wasn't lying to myself.
How rare are them?
I've only got one, so it must be
Yeah,
very
well,
rare.
If you've only got one, then it must be rare.
Rainbow Finder General.
I'd never even heard of them, and I could see it on the back of the camera, so I was convinced that it was real. And then I was Googling to see whether I was hallucinating or not, and I wasn't. So yeah, reading the weather conditions can help you to kind of add the extra elements into the photos. And I think one of the main things of doing landscape photography is you're really taking photos of the weather in that location, because if you just turn up even to the greatest location but you haven't got great light, you're possibly going to get a mediocre picture, which I get as well. So in terms of the sun, summer is one of my least productive times for photos. I can get sunsets, but there's huge expanses of the day where if it's a great day, I'm not really going to be getting any photos. The clouds are really my what's the word? They're kind of quite important to me when I'm getting photos. Blue skies just don't really make appealing photos, in my opinion. What I do like is having broken clouds, which mean that the light which comes in is almost running like spotlights across the scene, because you can time those shots to wait until the light is on the elements which you want to enhance. So this is Lady Bower Reservoir in the Peak District. There was a sunset through broken clouds, and it was just about catching when the light was just hitting the key elements. This one's a single exposure. Those light rays just happen to drop brilliantly. Sometimes what I'll do is, with the camera on a tripod, I'll let the light pick out a certain area and get the photos. When it's catching another area, get photos of that, align the photos, and then blend those two together so I can get the same light on multiple elements. And I think the common phrase for that is time shifting, or time stacking. So like your focus or exposure stacking. So yeah, sunrise through the clouds, and this is Park House in Crome Hill. And actually, this I think is one of the first few where I've had planned, and it was about having the sun lined up with this valley. I did get the booty bonus of catching it around this side as well. And like on this image, it just feels as though that sun is pouring around the valley as it's coming up in the morning. This is Snowdon, up in the clouds, and again I got rained on for most of this. This is the one where I decided, no, I do really need to learn and start watching the weather. All these clouds were overhead. We'd just finished a rainstorm, and then this one shaft of light just came down into the horseshoe. And I'd say this is the shot where I learned that that inclement weather can make great shots. I do just wish there was more water. And again, sunset, broken clouds, and just having it so it's not hitting everything, it's just hitting what we want. So this is Llanberis down here in Snowdonia, and this is Dinorwic Quarry. When I was with, is it just you two?
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. We had a scare on the way here, so I think it took us, was it 3 hours
Yeah.
plus? We came through Capel Curig. Well, we came through Betsy Coyd, and as we're driving through, I think Andy, you pointed out that every time Chadders drives through Betsy Coyd, we get rained out.
And it wasn't.
And it wasn't. And then as we drove up to Penny Pass, which is just before you get to this valley, with Snowdon at the top, we drove up and into the clouds.
But we hit a wall. There was literally came down like a wall. There was nothing, and then it was
Yeah.
there.
And as we're driving through Penny Pass, we can't see more than 50 foot, if
Yeah.
that. Lights are on, cars coming the other way. So we've just driven 3 hours, and this was my suggestion to come here. So I'm like, they're gonna kill me. We reached the top of Penny Pass, dropped out of the clouds, and this light was pouring down the valley. And we ended up getting to Dinorwic in time for some fantastic shots. In fact, Andy's got a great one these rocks on the left is quite a big outcrop with a path cut through them, and you managed to time it perfectly so this light was shining down that path and illuminating a tree growing out of a huge pile of slate.
Let me just so happens. It's that photo.
Yeah, so it's feeling some old. Oh yeah, it's like that.
This is in the Lake District. I think I've messaged a few people saying I've come all this way, and we had all of these heavy clouds in the top, and I lost all the light. So I think this had taken me probably an hour to walk up Home Fell. I'm complaining to the guys that I've driven all this way. It's taken me an hour with quite a difficult hike, killing all my energy. And then the sun came out and it managed to drop. Is it this next shot? Yes, this gives you an idea. It just lined perfectly along these ridge lines. The mountains were poking through, so they were catching light on the peaks. And again, this one's a single exposure, but just catching exactly what I want to be lit up.
It's just
Even
really good how, say, that the mountain or hills, whatever, in the foreground are lit up and the ones in the background aren't. It really makes what, in an ordinary day, that would just be a standard photo, wouldn't it?
yeah, if you can get broken light, you get that separation. So if all of this was lit, you'd probably lose those trees
Yeah.
within the green of that valley floor. And again, this ridge, maybe with the stones or the rocks, you'd have a bit of a better view, but it could easily get lost and you'd lose all those layers. And then this shot was just all about this single ray coming down and just giving us this amazing halo. I don't know if this one's a pano or if it's or if I've just heavily cropped it. But again, it's about letting the light give you that separation. Yeah, so these trees are pretty much lost against the background, and those are the ones lit up 2 shots ago. And then again, the shadow on these mountains in the back, they're the glitters. That's from the cloud. This shadow is also the clouds which the sun was breaking through. And then this shadow is the mountains behind me. So it was just about getting that spotlight of sunlight. And then this is just moving the camera left. I was going to say how many degrees, but I don't know. Less than 180. But that's Snowdon. That's Cribgoch. And this is Linladore, so this is within the Snowdon Horseshoe. And I'd actually planned this one based on there being clear skies. So I'd come up the day before, or the evening before, and the weather was atrocious. So the clouds came in, I was getting soaked. I was then staying overnight in the car, and I've only got a little C1. So I was hunched up on the seat, waking up every hour. I'd originally planned on parking where it was only £4 to park, or free, but it meant a 40-minute walk up to get to the start of the path. And then I found out that the Snowdon, or the Penny Pass car park, was only £10 for 24 hours. Whereas normally I think it's about £18 and you have to book the day before. So I forgot to reset my alarms. So after getting almost no sleep, I drove up to the Penny Pass car park and set out on the hike 2 hours early. So an hour before I wanted to be there, I'd given myself an hour to make sure I was in the right spot and had a good composition, not taking into account that I'd done all that the day before. So for 2 hours, I sat in my waterproof gear, hunkered up in the wind and the rain, and I was on the verge of going home because I've clearly made a mistake. And then an hour after I was trying to make that decision whether to leave or not, the sun broke through the clouds and we got this shot, and this shot. So even with planning, I can make mistakes. But I just improve my chances of getting better shots. And then sometimes I get shots with zero planning. So I was heading round to the Ogwen Valley, drove up this valley, which is Nant Francon, and saw this view. So pulled over, jumped out the car, and took a photo. So you don't need to do any planning at all. Just turn up
Forget everything you
and
just
shoot.
said.
Exactly, yeah. And again, this shot was planned in terms of the location. I'd found this tree early on, but the weather conditions were rubbish. There was way more cloud than I was expecting. There were no breaks, and then I was on the verge of moving and perhaps going further to the coast to hope for a shot. I thought, no, I'm gonna stick it out. And then within half an hour, those weather conditions just completely changed. And I ended up with a fantastic sunset and this beam of light just hitting the tree. So yeah, sometimes you think your plans have gone wrong, and then you get lucky. And we've seen them. So it's 3 minutes to 9. I will cover just this one then. So in terms of the day, the time of day to go, if you go midday, you're not really going to see any photographers set up because daylight is harsh, it's quite pale, you don't get great separation, and a fantastic area like Landwin Island can look fairly lacklustre. Stick around until the sun's going down or rising, and suddenly you get colour, you get deeper colours, you get less contrast, but you still get that separation between the areas which are catching the light and the areas which are in shadow, without having such a huge dynamic range that your highlights are blown and your shadows are just disappear. Again, slightly different angle, these rocks are quite big in the foreground, but they disappear into the grass. The water's quite meh, and the sky, even with the detail pulled out as much as possible, is still fairly boring. Come back when the sun's going down and you're in golden hour, and it's a completely different story.
And that looks like a Turner painting or something, doesn't it?
So you get more saturation. The later it gets, your golden light versus your blue hour creeping in from the other direction, you can get that colour contrast. The rocks now stand out with the shadows against the grass, and suddenly the sea becomes more than just a white mess. So yeah, golden hours, definitely worth shooting in.
I really like that. I'd have that on my wall.
150 quid, you can.
Frame for 100.
Thanks, everyone. It's a good photo though. I mean, they all are, but like that one. I just like the way how it's so blue on the left and yellowy orange on the right. It's almost a line between.
Problem with having people in photographs.
Wasn't you?
Oh.
So yeah, in terms of planning, by having a set of locations already mapped out for where I want to go, I haven't got to make that decision I can easily make that decision if it's on the day or in advance. With a good and accurate weather app, I'm able to judge in advance whether it's worth going and where it's worth going, and then again refine that list so I haven't got quite such an overwhelming choice. And then working on the time of the day in terms of the golden hour or the blue hour, I know when to turn up, so I'm not wasting hours and energy just in fairly naff conditions, and I can come away with belters.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Is that your excuse now?
Does anyone have any questions today?
Are a lot of yours all done manually and in RAW?
Yeah, and until more recently, I've shot manual exposure, manual ISO, and I even did a lot of manual focusing until I upgraded my lenses and realised that actually their automatic focus is good enough.
What's your ratio of photographs to actual footprints?
That'd be telling.
That's a dirty question.
Ratio photographs to what?
Of the ones he's taken and the ones he's actually happy with.
Oh, okay.
I'd say I've probably got in 3 years. I think I've got about 60 photos, which I'd call portfolio worthy. I've got 10,000 photos which are editing worthy, saving worthy, and posting worthy. And I've probably taken probably a good 100,000 photos in 3 years. But that's from going out to, like 100 locations and probably, I don't know, maybe 150 days out.
You will be doing tours soon, won't you, and photography days and things.
Yeah, so
Special discounts for the club.
yeah, double. Yeah, so over winter I'll be setting up a number of photography tours, so looking at Snowdon, Anglesey, and the Peak District. Maybe the Lake District, but I'm not convinced.
You do sunsets rather than sunrises, don't you?
Until now, yeah. The thing I like with the sunsets is that I can go and explore an area well in advance, spend a couple of hours, and then know where I want to be. And I think I get more time to react as the sun's setting. Whereas sunrise, you're walking there in the dark, you're trying to find a composition in the dark or twilight, and then you've got to react. It's probably just in my head, but I just feel like I've got less time to react on a sunrise. And I've got to get up early.
Or stay out overnight.
Yeah. Which in a C1 is not comfortable.